Hey, what's up? It's me, your girl Nia. I am coming to you from Black Exploration with Nia. Drinking your water and minding your business is the best. That's when you literally have a chemical imbalance that is causing the personality defect of narcissism. I only want to talk about this because I have supported men through this. And I know that when men are in dark times, they drink alcohol or they have lots of sex. What value
can you
bring to this person and see in them?
So how much did you have to fix your relationship with yourself first in order to have a successful relationship with someone else? Even in the realm of dating.
When it comes down to it, people's opinions are not facts, it's just their opinions. Hey guys, it's me, Nia, your licensed clinical therapist and holistic healer, and you are back for another episode of Black Exploration with Nia. I am excited to be here. You know that on this show, we are all about authenticity, so anything goes. We will be exploring the 4 key areas of holistic healing: intimacy, financial freedom, spirituality, and mental and physical health. Yes, I had to kind of pause because, it just rambles off the tongue. Right. I am here with my amazing coach, Kat, and he is the host of Anything Can Happen show. So if you guys have not checked that show out, you guys have to check it out. I'm going to toss it over to Kat, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about who he is and how we can put some respect on his name. How you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. How you doing? Yeah.
I'm excited to be here because we go way back personally, and now we're here professionally. And I'm excited for my audience also to get to know all the many different hats that you wear. I just talked about just one. So let the audience know about yourself and how they can put some respect on your name.
Yeah. So my name is Kat, the owner of Kat Fitness. I'm a strength and conditioning coach by trade. I am the CEO of Heal the Hood, which we go into inner city communities, provide free meals, free health coaching for the community, our inner city communities. I'm also a host of what you just said, Anything Can Happen show on 96.9 FM. And I also have my supplement brand that's just launched called Rejuvenate, where we do the sea mosses, the flavored sea mosses and everything. So I got my hands in a couple different things right now.
Yeah, you know what? I just purchased some of your sea moss. You shared it with me on your show. I actually should have had it on camera, but I don't. But his sea moss is amazing. He got a customer out of me. So if you guys are looking for any type of nutritional supplements, his sea moss is really good, and I do highly recommend it. We'll go ahead and we'll put the link to how people can purchase that.
Put it somewhere where they could just tap
in the showcase notes. And then, we're always promoting wellness in our email listing. So if you guys have not subscribed to our email list, please, you can reach out to team@ridgelconsulting.com to inquire more about that. So let's get right into the interview because we have so much to talk about. I actually had the privilege on being on the Anything Can Happen show, and we got into a lot of ancestral healing. We talked a lot about relationships, and so a lot of the conversation that we talked about really falls into the conversation that we're going to have today. However, this showcase is all about you, so I'm taking off the hat of being interviewed and becoming an interviewee. So I want the audience to know just a little bit about your journey spiritually. How did you become who you are today, and how has your spiritual journey supported you in that?
Yeah, I think from a very young age, I always had a deep spiritual connection. I just never knew what was going on because the people around me, my parents, my grandparents and stuff like that, they didn't know how to explain it to me, like the things that I would experience, like spiritually, right? And we all go through it. I'm not talking like I'm somebody special or anything, but we all have some kind of spiritual connection where sometimes the ancestors can be speaking through us or guiding us through our day, and we call it coincidence, or we'll be manifesting, especially as kids, because as kids we just dream. We just use our imagination and stuff like that and think of all these cool things that could happen in life, and then they begin to happen and we don't understand that we're the ones manifesting, controlling that experience, or bringing those things to us.
Right.
Right. And I did that, we've all done it all through our life. But when I really got conscious of that was probably 8 years ago. 8 years ago, right after my health scare and my transformation, where I had to lose 70 pounds myself, because I probably hit the lowest of lows when it came to my own personal health. Sometimes you got to hit the low to hit the high, right? So I hit the lowest of lows with my health and just focusing on me. And through that transformation, a lot of things just came to fruition. Like, I was like, where was I the happiest in my life?
Yeah.
Right? And just like we were talking earlier off air, is like sports was like one of the happiest times of my life, playing sports, playing football, playing soccer, like being an athlete, right? And once you get to a certain level, like I got to junior college and then I got hurt and then I had a kid. So it just stopped for me, right? And then in my household, it was like, when you get to that point, it's like, now you got to join the real world, right? So my 3 options growing up was either go to school, get a job, or join the military.
Yeah.
That was like the perspective my dad gave me. Like growing up, he was like, you're not going to sit around all day. You're going to get a job, either get a job, join the military, or go to school. Which one are you going to choose? And that just puts you like, oh, well, I guess get a job. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like start working in corporate America, I guess. If
so
that's
no military.
Crazy thing about it is I did go sign up for the military. I went to sign up for the Air Force. Okay. Right? So when I went in and registered for the Air Force, I took the little exam. They loved me. They were like, oh my God, you scored really high. Like, you can register for any kind of job. And then at that time I was playing football. This is right after I got hurt playing football. And they start doing like your body matrix, like to see, height, weight, the scales and everything. And they were like, oh, you got to lose like 20, 30 pounds to fit our criteria, right? And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm not losing 20, 30 pounds, right? That's not going to happen. Like, I'm not.
That was the deal breaker?
Yeah, that was a deal breaker. And I went over, my dad was like, if you're not joining the Air Force, join the Navy. He was like, they're hella chill too. So I went over to the Navy, did the same thing, took the test, the whole 9. But I talked to the recruiter and I was like, the guy over there said I had to lose like 20 something pounds to fit their criteria. I was like, y'all do the same thing? And he was like, yeah, but we also do body weight composition. Like, he was like, you play sports, right? He's like, you look like you play sports. And I was like, yeah. He was like, well, we're going to do your body fat percentage versus just your weight, your height and your weight. Okay. Right. And when they did that, they was like, oh yeah, you meet the criteria. The only thing that stopped me at that moment was my recruiter at that moment. My girl, which is now my wife, was probably like 3 or 4 months pregnant. And I was like, well, this is her due date. I need to be here. I want to be here for my son being born, right? And I was like, she's due around this time. I was like, how does that work? And he was like, well, once you go off to basic training, this and that, he was like, it's no guarantee you'll be back in time for the birth of your son, right? And I'm like, dang. I was like, I want to be here for the birth of my son. So I told him, I was like, can we just prolong me going to boot camp or whatever? And he was like, yeah. And a lot of people say he didn't even have to tell me that, because a lot of times they just want to meet their numbers and get you in there. Right. But he was very upfront. He was like, yeah, I can't promise you'll be back for the birth of your child. So then I ended up getting a job at that point. And then, yeah.
So talk to me about, I want to explore more about like your son being born.
Game changer.
How was that a game changer for you? Like, how did you become enlightened?
2 times. My son was born in June. I got shot at in April and May. Like hanging out with my friends, just being in the streets in the Bay Area, just that energy at that time. That was like the atmosphere. Yeah, that was the atmosphere we were in. Matter of fact, a friend of ours threw a party, Kenny. Okay. Threw a party, and after one of his parties, right in front of his house, it was like one of those what's that movie where they had like hundreds of people at the party?
Menace to Society?
No. One of the new movies. Anyways, where it was like a huge block party where people from all different cities came.
Yeah.
So it was people from San Francisco, Richmond, Oakland, like all these different
I already
people.
know it's going to be a show. Somebody, when they doing that. I don't know why we set ourselves up thinking it's going to be peaceful.
Yeah. So right after the party, somebody from the city was just running his mouth. And at that time, you know, I was drinking, doing all types of stuff. And what he said, I took to offense at that time. And we was about to get into a fight, and he pulls out a gun, and we're probably like 10 feet away, right? And my girl, Shay, was picking me up from this party. She's like 7 months pregnant at this time, picking me up from the party, and in the car, and I'm walking in the street to fight dude, he pulls out a gun and points it at me. And then when he goes to fire, he puts it over my head and just fires over my head. So that was like one thing that kind of like, like I need to start doing something different, right? The very next month, we was in Jack London, right? Waiting until a sideshow was about to start. Same thing.
Still going out.
Still going out. Being a young knucklehead. I was only 20 at the time, right? So going out, we was in Jack London, and right across the street from was it the Buttercup? Mm-hmm. I think the little waffle spot. It used to be an open parking lot. Now it's like a high-rise condos or whatever they built in there. But we was over there, ran into some dudes, got into it, left there, went out to the east, and we was at the Denny's right in East Oakland by the Raiders Stadium, right? And got into it with them again. They pulled out a gun again on us, and we was like, oh shit, like. Yeah.
Y'all the same people?
Same people.
And y'all still didn't learn your lesson?
Man. No, not from the first party. This is the same day, but we ran into the same people twice in two different areas. Like, we was over there in Jack London, then we went to East Oakland, ran into the same dudes, got into it again, and then one of the dudes that was with them pulled a gun out on us.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So
that was like...
then what did that do for you? Like, what message did that send to you? Because like a lot of men, I think they go through the reactions to life. Yeah. Kind of take a step out and take a step aside, deep breath, and like from outside looking in, approach, evaluate. Like, how am I having these same encounters over and over again?
Yeah, like I said, it was just the energy we were around at that time, but the second time it happened, it was like, dang, like that could have been 2 times that I died right before my son, before even seeing my son. Mm-hmm. Right, he wasn't even born yet, and that's when I kind of slowed down. Mm-hmm. I was kind of more conscious of the places I was going, when things were going on, not being in the middle of that kind of energy and kind of like falling back a little bit more, because I knew if I continued down that path, because a lot of people, we grow up, you see people get shot and killed, and that's nothing to glorify it, but it starts to become a reality to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you see this and it's like, okay, people shoot at parties. Like that's the norm. Like the party gets shot up.
Yeah.
When that's not normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Going to a party and expecting it to get shot up kind of thing. And, not saying that I stopped going out, but I stopped projecting that kind of masculine energy and those kind of atmospheres to kind of like not attract those kind of things to me.
So what are some projections that energy can, like, what were you getting at? Like, what was your demeanor? What was your mindset?
Just like a tough guy.
Okay.
What, quote unquote, what people would, tough guy in a party, like mugging people, like, I'm like staring people down for no reason. But growing up, that's like, you use that to protect yourself. You don't want to be looked at as like a victim.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, this dude, I can push him around or something like that, or look like you a punk or something.
Right.
So at that time, you create this like facade. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a tough dude, like, don't mess with me type thing. And then that attracts other people that are looking for that kind of energy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And then it's so funny because a lot of times, like when I start falling back, you could start seeing those things happen in those atmospheres. You know what I'm saying? Like when certain groups would get around each other and then people would want to see who's the tougher, like, was it Richmond? Was it Oakland? Was it the city? And we all in the same parties and stuff like that. And then that energy, people just go at it.
And they play that one song. That one
Little John song that turn up the whole party. Somebody pull out their gun and start shooting or fighting or something.
That one song, okay, it's time to go. So tell me about so you have your son. Did you have like a visual of like what type of father you wanted to be to your son before he was born, or did you kind of just be free spirited with that?
No, in my eyes, I wanted to be involved in his life. I wanted, like, my dad was a full-time father. Like, he was retired by the time I was born. So my mom was the one that was going to work all the time.
Okay.
So in my household, mom was at work, 9-to-5 job, 5 to 6 days a week. Dad was the one taking me to school, waking me up, making me breakfast.
Okay.
Taking me to all my sporting events. Like, he was the one always there. So in my eyes, I needed to be at all my kids. Anything that they did, I was always there. Okay. Like 99% of the time, I would be at any of my kids' things. So I always saw myself being there for my son, being around my son, because that's how I grew up. Yeah. So
your wife?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you found out she was having a baby, were you prepared?
No.
How did you feel? Like,
I was still the guy wanting to go to college, getting to the next level to play sports.
Okay.
So I was in junior college at the time, working on getting to like a D1, D1 AA, playing sports, continuing, see how far I could go. And when I was told that, plus I got injured, it was like the world just caved in on me. Like, it was like one of those things where I was like, okay, now I have to be an adult, So yeah, it wasn't planned, but the crazy thing about it was I remember the moment it happened and I told her that she was pregnant. I was like, damn, you pregnant. And she was like, what? I was like, nah, you pregnant. Like, and you're having a son.
So how has it been with going from a mindset shift because your vision for your life didn't go in that space that you wanted to go in? You were learning a lot of separation lessons that you had to change your crowd and your demeanor to now, having a son and now you have his partner. I'm really interested in, because one of the conversations I had shared with you when we were off air, how my mother's father wasn't in her life. My father was in my life, but he was at leisure, and now the same generational cycle is being repeated that she's realizing in our family. And one of the things that she brought to my attention is that she's never felt supported by Black men. She's always felt like it's been a competition, or she's just been let down, in general. And so from the flip side of that, one of the things that, I want to encourage all women, when you have a negative narrative, and this is what I had to do in my healing journey, is I had to explore opposite of that. Right. Because I think sometimes it's easier for, if you've been hurt, to normalize the hurt or to continue to let the hurt guide you rather than face the hurt head on and open yourself up to something different. Right. So from a perspective of a Black man who you could have been different things, different places, and doing, different things in your life. What do you feel is the difference between a man who just takes a route which is not supporting, not staying with the family, not co-parenting, not showing up in that way, versus a man who's willing to step up and do those things? And what's the contrast from your opinion with that?
So if I understand your question correctly, like what made me want to be in my kid's life versus a guy that's like a deadbeat dad that just not
there.
Not
even a deadbeat, because I don't even think that a lot of men are deadbeats. I think they just don't have the mindset to transition over. Like you talked about a lot of different ways that you could have went, but you still. Okay, like so for example, the decision to not go to the military. A lot of guys would have went to the military and used the military as like, well, I got to go because this is what I got to do for my child. I can't be there for the birth because I'm looking forward to like being able to support him. You also change your crowd, right? Which is a lot of guys don't choose to change their crowd because they're from what they from. They do what they do, and that's how they do it, right? You also weren't married at the time, right? You still chose to stay with your children's mother. You didn't have to do that because legally you didn't have that obligation, and you were a free man, still having his hopes and dreams about college, right? So how you made a lot of life decisions to go down one path when you had multiple opportunities to take multiple paths. What's in a man's mindset or a psyche that will pull him in those different directions?
So to be totally transparent, like when I was younger, I used to have visions of me dying early, like not living a long time. And I would have these dreams, like, of me getting shot and different things. Like, I don't know if it's because of the things I was, like, movies and different stuff that I saw as a kid. And, a lot of times you see that, young black men get killed at a young age. And that's kind of like programming in my head. It's like, damn, I might not live that long, right? So I always, subconsciously, always wanted to have a kid a little bit earlier. Okay. Because I wanted to see me live on, right? So it wasn't like bad news when she told me she was pregnant. It was like, okay, well, this is something I eventually wanted. I didn't know it was coming now, but it's time to step up to the plate. And seeing my dad, like I said, be there for me, right, no matter what I did. And he was also, so my dad, okay, I'm going to put this out here. So I have an older brother. Okay. My brother is like 14 years older than me. Okay. Right? My dad didn't have me until his early 40s. Okay. So he was mature. Yeah, he was older. He was more mature as a dad. But my brother was 14 years older than me. So I looked up at my brother as like a role model. Mm-hmm. Right? So my brother was like, think about like Fresh Prince, but in the streets. But like cool, like the coolest thing. Like he always had the freshest clothes. He always knew how to talk to the girls and stuff like that. And I wanted to be like my brother, right? But seeing my dad, it was a huge gap, right? So I could relate more with my brother than I could with my dad, but I saw my dad do certain things with my brother, like protect my brother from certain things. Like when my brother got so deep into the streets that it almost killed him, I saw my brother go into the military and have to leave and do what he had to do to get away from what he had going on at that time. And that's why when the military came involved, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense because my brother did it. He had to take care of his kid too. He had a kid at a young age. Okay. My brother had a kid. I think we was around the same age, probably like age? 18, 19. I was 20 at the time, but I think my brother was around like 18, 19, 20 when he had my nephew, right? But I was only like 5 at the time or something, right? So I was an uncle at 5 years old. So seeing all those kind of things is like the contrast of what could happen if you go down this route, right? Seeing like if you're in the streets and stuff like my brother was and just hanging around certain people, you can die. And then starting to experience that and seeing how my dad was like the voice of reason. Like my dad was like, hey, you need to separate yourself, and learning how to separate, those lifestyles allowed me to, when I got to that point, allowed me to separate. Like, I need to separate. I need to stop. I need to slow down. I need to, if this is what I want, to be a father and be there for my son, I need to start acting in a different manner. Yeah. Right. So that allowed me to do that, where I feel like some people get so caught up in whatever story that they're telling themselves you know, whatever they've built up into their mind of who they are at that in that moment, that's what they project. That's what they, you know what I'm saying? Because I know people that have had kids, like you said, and then they had kids, but they don't step up to the plate. And it's not because they may have not had a father in their life. They were so deep into that story of what they told themselves, they couldn't break away from that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you bring up a lot of good points that I feel is missing in young Black men's lives, you know, when they're at that 17, 18, 19-year-old stage. And that's where I see a lot of like life-changing experiences happening for black boys. There's not a very big contrast of like the different routes you can take if there's no some type of intervention. Like Justin talks about basketball for him. You talk about your father and seeing your brother go through those different routes for you. But like what I see is a lot of Black men don't have really those interventions that are like separating them from like what's introduced in them early and other alternative routes that they could take. So for the listeners out there, maybe they're a Black father and they've made some decisions that have not been inclusive of the family. What are some decisions that you've had to make, you know, even if it's like in a form of humility, to continue to keep your family together and thriving, that maybe many women don't know that Black men have to make to be fathers?
Man. So I'm not going to sit here and make it seem like the relationship that I had with my wife was like the Cosbys or something.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's not the reality of it. Like, we were together. We had our first kid. We were both young. She was 19. I was just turning 20. And like the first year, like we're kids still. You know what I'm saying? And to this day, like it's been a constant growing process as kids raising kids. And we broke up probably after that first year or a year and a half. We broke up. And we just went our separate ways. I had a kid with somebody else during that time, and I looked at my life. Like I said, as having an older brother that was so much older than me, I looked at what he did and the route that I was going down, and I was like, man, I could do something different, right? And I was like, what's like. Once I started getting into another relationship, and I was like, nobody's necessarily going to be perfect, right? It's almost like, what are the things that resonate with you in a relationship, right? And not saying that me and my second son's mother wasn't compatible, but the spectrum was so different where she was in her journey and where I was at mine. She's 10 years older than me, right?
The second kid's mother?
Yeah, she's 10 years older than me. So we're at two different places.
Oh, she was dating young.
Huh?
She was dating young.
I was early 20s, she was early 30s.
Okay.
Right?
Conversations must have been interesting.
Well, like I said, I was around a lot of mature or older people growing up. So I didn't act like your typical 21, 22
I feel
year
it.
old.
You better preach it.
Yeah.
Listen.
So it was just a different vibe. But like I was saying, she was in a different part of her journey, right? She already had two kids of her own. This was her third child. It was my second child. And then at that moment, you know, still being in my son's lives, both of my son's lives, I was like, man, I don't want to just have kids everywhere.
Exactly.
Right? And I rekindled with my oldest son's mom, and then we eventually got married.
So why did you go back to the first child's mother and not stay with the second one? What was the difference?
I actually asked her to marry me, and she said no.
The second one?
The second one, yeah.
Wow, why?
She was already married. That's why I said she already experienced marriage, and she was married to her first baby father for I don't know how many years, but then they got a divorce. So she was like maybe a couple years out of a divorce in her early 30s, and I've never been married, but I thought that was the next step in my mind.
In
like
your mind.
It's time to, you know, get married. It's time to like focus on raising these kids. Like that was the next step in my mind, and she wasn't there.
Where was she?
She was just like, let's just be a couple and raise this kid.
And you weren't with that?
Now I wanted a wife in my mind.
So what's the difference between a wife and a girlfriend?
I think just more of a commitment. Just knowing that it's just, we're locked in. It's me and you kind of thing.
Okay.
And in that sense, that's what I wanted at that time. Mm-hmm. As a young, like I was 23, 24.
Yeah.
Probably at that time. And that in that stage of my life, that's what I wanted. Mm-hmm. Right. So when she said no, it was like, I started to fall back. Right. I was like, okay, well, then what are we doing? You know, if we're not going to get married, then I'm not looking for like a forever girlfriend right now. Like,
that's interesting
in my mind, right?
You know, I find it interesting only because, you know, I'm in my late 30s too, and I'm a traditional, but I'm also, my friend was telling me I'm like a non-traditional person, and so I've also been asked to be married to and said no, but. Just from a woman's perspective, you know, on that, I think it's more of like from my, I don't know, I can't really speak for her. Yeah. I think it's more of a comfort zone. Mm. You know, like
what you mean, like
more of a like, if I invite this person into my life, then I'm gonna have to shift. I'm gonna have to change. It's like a sacrificing that goes to them.
But we're already living together. We're already doing, in my mind, probably like 80-90% of what a married couple would be doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just making it kind of like more official.
But the compare and contrast of being a single woman who can, you know, have
get up and go when you want to
out,
go. Yeah.
And you kind of sense that, and you were like, that wasn't the stability that I was looking for. I'm actually looking for more of that, you know, partnership type of vibe. And you felt like your first child's mother could match you and meet you where you're at in that. Yeah. So it was more like an alignment that needed to happen. So tell me about like then getting back with your child's first mother and having to rekindle that. How was that for you?
It was a lot. I mean, even though we broke up, I was still always there because, you know, we got our son together. Mm-hmm. So, you know, talking to her on a weekly basis, it was like, just like, hey, you know, this is where I was at. This is where I want to move forward. Is this what you're looking for, type thing? And after, you know, apologizing and saying, hey, you know, this is the reason why I went that route, and, you know, we were broken up anyways. Because I think at that time she thought we were just going to break up and then probably just get back together. And when I had a kid outside of that, I don't think she saw that. You know what I'm saying? And when that happened, it kind of put her in like more of a defensive mode of like, oh my God, he had a kid with somebody else. I'm not his, you know what I'm saying? So just working through that. And once we worked through that, it worked, you know?
So what is this top, if you can name it, like because you've had a very multifaceted, you know, fatherhood experience, what are the top 3 things that fatherhood has matured you in?
What has it matured me in?
Yeah, what are the top 3 areas?
I would say matured me in just making sure, I know my kids have shown me to lead more by example than just like, because even when I said I had to lose the 70 pounds in my own health journey, it was one of those things. It's not only because of my health scare, but that expedited the process, because when, like, I would take my kids to like track practice or whatever, I would talk about what I was back in the day, right? At that time, they're little kids. They're probably like, one's probably like 6, the other's 4 or 7 and 5, somewhere around there. And I would talk about, oh, when I was an athlete, I do this and this and this, talking in past tense, right? Like, I was fast, I was that dude back in the day.
The Al Bundy?
Yeah, the Al Bundy, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they're like, oh, really, possible? But kids are like looking at you like right now, like, you don't look athletic, you don't look like none of what you telling me, right? Right. And you sense that vibe. And sensing that vibe, was another thing. It was like, man, I gotta lead by example with my kids. I don't want to just tell them what they need to do or what they should be doing, but I want to be an example of that for my sons. You know what I'm saying? That you can still be healthy in your 30s, that you can still do all these things, following your dreams. I would always tell my kids to follow their dreams, right? You know, dream this. Another thing, talking to my kids, I'm really talking to myself, right? It's like I'm telling them to dream big, do all these things, but yet and still I'm not doing it. I'm still going to my corporate job, relying on somebody else to take care of me. Like, if I'm telling my kids not to do it, why am I doing it? You know what I'm saying? So little things like that, I feel like help me mature, because everything that I would tell my kid, I would have to sit back and reflect on. I was like, damn, I need to work on that on me first.
Right.
And then I can show my kids.
Right.
Instead of just telling them. So I think that helped me mature a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have lead by example.
Lead by example.
And then follow your dreams. And what's the last one?
Last one. Put yourself first.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like health, mentally, all those kind of things. I always tell them, like, you can only love somebody else as much as you could love you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things. If you're not loving on yourself, how can you love somebody else? Don't seek love outside of yourself. Find it within.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So tell me about your spiritual journey, like through fatherhood. What do you think spiritually you've had to get really clear about? Because I really do feel like parenting is a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And there's so many, there's so many generational narratives that we can continue to fall down. But it seems like you've been able to create one of your own, that you can take lived experiences from other people and kind of categorize it into one lived experience for you. Spiritually, what do you feel like fatherhood has, matured you into, as far as just self-mastery, and where do you feel like, spiritually you were being guided to this season of your life?
Man, spiritually, we had a moment downstairs spiritually, just reconnecting with my ancestors and my purpose, and not yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of my dad's transition, as I was telling you before the show. And all the things that I was spiritually guided to do prior to my dad's transition was very interesting, because during COVID, having my own business, my business was going up, right, this whole time, and then COVID hit. COVID hit, my business, I had to create a whole new business model, right? I had to create an online business, all these things that I wasn't really familiar with. And then at the time where I was figuring it out, my business was going back up. But unknowingly, my dad was ready to make his transition. I didn't know he was ready to make his transition, only he knew, but I felt something. And I was spiritually led to stop my business as we're going back up, right? And it was pulling me in two different directions. I'm like, dang, I feel like I'm supposed to be spending more time with my dad, my mom. I feel like I'm supposed to slow down from my business, but my business has just gotten back to a place where we're doing it again, right? And I looked at it and I was like, every time I've listened to my spirit guiding me, it's always been a bigger blessing behind that, right? So I told my clients, it was like the end of July, going into August of last year, I told my clients, I was like, hey, I need some time off. I want to take some time off from training and everything like that. I need to spend some more time with my family. And they're like, my clients are cool. We have great relationships. So they're like, okay, Kat, if you could send us anything, what we can continue to do while you're not here. I was like, yeah. So at that time, I was just hanging out with my dad and my mom. And then it was funny because maybe a month prior from him making his transition, he just told me some stuff. He was like, hey, what's going on right now, pretty much that he could no longer serve the family in the vessel that he was in, kind of thing. Like he knew his body was deteriorating, right? And that he was kind of just like holding us back from moving forward. And he knew that. And I'm listening to him and I'm hearing him, but I'm like, okay, like I don't quite get it yet. But then 3 weeks later come where we have to take him to the hospital because he's having some health issues. Within a week's time, he goes from being like at the house to like now he's needs to be on hospice. Like we're making like life or death decisions on what we're gonna do with my dad, right? And I'm like, dang, in a week's time, like things have changed that fast. And to see all the connections after he made his transition, like how many things like I needed to see to kind of take over the reins, right? Like how he prepared me for this moment to be the new masculine energy of the family, and how he knew it was time for him to make his transition and for me to step into that role. It was like
How's your mom doing?
Better.
Okay.
Yeah, she's doing better because they were together for 40 years before he made his transition.
Yeah.
So more of her life has been with him than without him. So when that transition happened, she saw a part of herself go. So that's been challenging. So just like anything in life, she's had her good days and her challenging days.
Yeah.
But she's starting to have more of those days where she's seeing more of the brighter side than, than dealing
And I think it's hard for
that.
women, especially when you have boys, not to get involved with them. Like, because I have clients that I support who, if there is a father transition, they're like, now they're like more kind of clingy on their sons, and the expectation is like not realistic because they don't want to, they want to try to fill that void with avoidance. And also too, on the flip side, you felt that?
Yeah, like because my dad was retired, so she had all day with my dad, right?
Right.
So I'll come visit my mom and take her like grocery shopping or help her out with something. But it was those times like when I had to go back to train my clients or do a podcast or do something, it was like, oh, you're leaving me. I was like, Mom, I gotta do what I gotta do. I'm not leaving you. I still love you. You have to understand. I was like, what do you want me to stop doing everything that I'm doing right now?
Right.
Just to spend, that's not realistic. I can't spend all my time.
So how was it creating that boundary for you?
With my mom?
Yeah.
It was challenging at first, but I had to talk to her. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, more of my life I've spent with my dad, being there, my dad raising me versus my mom. My mom was always at work. Not saying that she wasn't in my life, but she was working 40, 50 hours a week, and I would see her in the evening time and stuff like that. It was one of those things that we're now developing that relationship that I had with my dad so many years ago because of the amount of time I got to spend with him. And I didn't get to spend that time with my mom because she was working until 2 years ago. Yeah. She just retired 2 years ago. So that first year of retirement, she was taking care of my dad like full time. The second year after my dad made his transition, she was coping with grief. Yeah. So now that's me filling that void and talking with her, doing more things, showing her, like her seeing more of me as not just being her son, but being the man of the family and raising my kids.
And I think that was, sometimes mothers have like unrealistic expectations of like how involved they want their sons to be. And we talked about one of our episodes how boundaries, are really, Black men have to have boundaries. He talks about a boundary around loving yourself and taking care of yourself, and that's a boundary that I think that Black men need to exercise more, especially when it comes to emotional distress, which is the leading cause of chronic illness in Black men. Is that they don't have those boundaries with emotional distress, and they carry a lot of that weight with them. They don't express it, they don't say it. It's just more so they like,
just absorbing it, taking it in,
take the hits, keep hitting. Or it comes out of irritability, frustration, or anger, you know, because it's been bottled in. So I'm a really huge advocate for Black men being more self-expressive and, you know, crying more and being more transparent when it comes to just the stress of being a Black man. Because I feel like even when I first started supporting Black men, like, and I share this all the time, I did not know that Black men, like, had feelings, like and it sounds so crazy.
Right.
No, I know, I'm so serious. Like, it sounds so crazy, but I've been in so many vulnerable situations as a clinician helping Black men with emotional regulation and self-expression that I had to I learned so much about myself, right, in that. And so how it's helped me in my healing process with supporting Black men, and why I'm like really adamant about Black women, like, sometimes you have to shut up, like, it's too much, is because we don't really get to see that vulnerable side. We really don't. We really don't get to even humanize you guys in that way, because it's so cut off and we're so sheltered from it. Yeah. It doesn't even pop into our mind to, like.
But we're programmed to go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As a Black man, I feel like. I only see my dad cry maybe like 2 or 3 times in his whole life. And that's when my grandmother passed away. That was when my brother passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And maybe like one other time that one of his best friends passed away.
So it was tragedy behind his tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, my dad was there full time. But this is like the running joke is like, my dad never hugged me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was there, but I was like, Dad, give me a hug. Man, get your ass off me. I don't hug. Men don't hug. Right. Pops, come here, man. Give your son a hug.
Yeah.
Man, come on. Stop playing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he lost his dad at a very young age, at 13.
Okay.
Right? His dad, my grandfather, didn't make it past his 30s, his late 30s. And so having somebody hugging him, doing all that kind of stuff, that wasn't him.
Yeah.
Right? He had to put up that guard for whatever reason. That 13-year-old boy lost his dad, never got hugged. And now when it's time to show affection to his son like that, it's kind of, you know what I'm saying? So.
Do you show affection to your boys now?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Because I didn't get hugs from my dad. I make sure my sons know, come here, man.
Give me a
give me a hug. You know what I'm saying? And that was something I had to learn from my father because of who he was and what he experienced. That I was like, okay, it's you know, our parents. We see our parents and then we get to pick and choose the things that you know served us and didn't serve us at a time, right? Like, my dad was so knowledgeable on certain things, but he would tell me to figure stuff out by myself.
Right.
Like, Dad, help me with this. He'll tell me a little bit, but go do it. He wouldn't walk me through the process. And now I would be so frustrated and irritated. Like, man, you could just help me. Like, just do it. Like, no, you're going to figure it out. But I feel like that has, looking back now, being able to look back and I was like, damn, that was like a jewel for me. Like, not always just relying on somebody, but knowing that I have everything inside of me to figure out whatever I want, kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I can figure it out if I choose to want to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So my biggest takeaways that I'm getting from this interview is that we always have choices, we always have chances, and things change. That there is a space for reconciliation if 2 people are open to it. Example, you and your wife being able to reconcile your marriage and still be married to this day, even though you had another kid. So forgiveness and a lot of like just support. Also too, there's no one way to be a good father. There's just good intentions to stay in integrity with that. Grief and loss is a part of our life process, but it teaches you things that you can learn from. So take everything with a grain of salt. Any takeaways that you can just reflecting back on this interview, because it's different when you're experiencing and when you're sharing it. So I always like to tap in with the interviewees to kind of see, like, do you have any takeaways that you can take away from this conversation that you can share with other people if they want to take something away?
Yeah, it's like we're always, we have the option to constantly grow, right? I could have still been that 19-year-old knucklehead, 20-year-old knucklehead to this day, right? But it was certain things in my life that I had to be present for and recognize as like, you're at that fork in the road. You know what I'm saying? I can go down this road or I can go down this road. And when I saw things not serving me through that journey, I would go down the other roads. Like, this is not where I went. I don't want to be, I don't want to suffer from the same health conditions that I see my family suffering from.
Right.
And when I was 70 pounds overweight, I started to see those things. Right. So I could have kept on eating the same bullshit, not working out, doing all the same things, and ended up like other people in my family. Or I could have been like, man, I got to get my stuff together.
Right.
I need to start working out consistently, changing my nutrition, the whole nine. And that's kind of been like the storyline of my life. Once I've experienced something and see how it can or can't serve me, then if I don't no longer want that energy, I have a choice to go in another direction.
Right.
And I think that'd be one of the biggest takeaways from the show. If you're not feeling the energy, or you're not where you want to be in your journey in this current moment, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It might not be an easy choice,
right?
But you have a choice to go in a different direction. So, hey, start exploring those choices that you have.
Yeah, and the power of choice is so powerful that sometimes when we are just in a lot of different things emotionally, we really don't take those opportunities to evaluate what choices do I have here, because there's a sense of powerlessness and hopelessness that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you
for
just being here, for being a different perspective. I always tell people, like, since I have a wellness brand that supports Black men, every single time I meet a Black man for the first time. Like, I've never met the same Black man. I've never met similar stories, different journeys, different experiences energetically. But I also have realized that I had to be open to understanding that Black men are on the spectrum. There's not like one way to be a Black man. And I think that has allowed me to really see the value in the differences and not be so sure about everything. Also, too, to just kind of be patient, and because you guys take a long time to reveal yourselves.
What's a long time?
I've known people for 12 plus years, and I'm still learning them every day.
Yeah, they're still learning themselves, though.
Yeah.
I even tell my wife, she was like, sometimes she'll say something, I say, I'm still learning myself.
Right.
Like, how can I expect you to know me if I don't know me? I'm constantly going, I'm not the same person I was 2-3 years ago. I might not be the same person I am last month.
Right.
Because of just being open to growth and change and looking at the world a different way. After this conversation, I can't be the same.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But you guys have a really interesting way. It's more introverted than it is extroverted. And I don't also think, because we pay a lot of attention to how you guys manifest yourselves, that there's just a lot of patience involved. And
being with a guy?
A Black man specifically.
Yeah, okay.
And one of the things one of my fellow church women told me, she said, not every woman is graced to be with a certain type of man. Like, it takes a lot of grace, and there's a certain level of grace that you have to have. So I think one of the ways that I support Black men unconditionally is I'm just a support and a resource. I can't date everybody. But I can be there to support.
But you can make content like this that help people through their journey.
I can do my part. I ain't graced to be with everybody, but I'm graced to have conversations like this, because I do want to understand Black men. I do want to grow, and I don't want to limit myself to my own lived experiences when it comes to like understanding Black men. Because just like as a Black woman, I want to be understood. I want to be respected. I want to be seen. Right? I extend that same favor to Black men, because I have been in conversations and intimate settings with Black men where I've had to see Black men like from a perspective of like, I gotta take my armor off, right? And I have to first of all recognize that armor was on, okay, and then which armor is mine, which was projected, onto me. So it's just, for me, it just allowed me to have conversations like this and respect that every single time I meet a Black man, I'm going to hear a different story, a different narrative, and I'm going to learn something. So I learned a lot about like neutrality, the different steps that Black men have to take, life experiences that they could go down different paths and different routes, but all those things lead back to what's more valuable to them, their value system. So where can we see you at in 5 years? Where can the audience
5 years?
Yeah, where can they check for you at in 5 years?
I see myself continuing to do our wellness events in the community. Yeah, that's on bigger and bigger scales. Heal the Hood is one of the projects that I have going on right now. We've done 7 events in the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
We've done Oakland, Richmond, and San Francisco, different parts of the community within those cities as well. And I just want to take that not only throughout the entire Bay Area, but taking that business model and start taking it, around the country and having healing retreats and things of that nature, and having people like you
Thank
at healing.
you.
Yeah, people like yourself at our healing retreats.
I would love that.
And continuing to just grow, just because I know, at least through my journey, right, it's seeds that need to be planted, or it's something that you can tell me that I haven't came to the realization. I'm like, damn, I didn't see it from that light or that perspective, right? Because whatever. And since you brought it to the light to me, I'm like, dang, now that allows me to grow if I choose to, if I'm in that space to grow. And I'm like, let me start doing that. So bringing that more to our community, because I feel like sometimes our community only sees certain things from a certain light. And for more of us to go back into our community that are doing the healing work on ourselves,
right,
and they can see through the work that we've done within that it can be done through them as well. They can heal themselves.
Yeah.
Internally.
I think that our community, from what it's worth, it's going to change because it has to. I think that, I know that I keep saying, I think that it
has changed. Think about where we've come from and where we're at now. So if we've done the work, it's more people doing it. So
I think, it's a double-edged sword, because I think there's a lot of lost children out here, but I also feel like a lot of the people that I'm meeting are actually doing their healing work, like he said, to go back in there to give them a different perspective. And again, it goes back to those key areas of change. We're being prepared, like we're getting different type of armor on to go back in there instead of the armor that we had with our family members, which is more like disassociation, like trauma bonding, having poor boundaries, people pleasing. Those are the coping skills we're healing from. That now we can go back into our community and give people a different perspective, but from a place of like balance. I was never taught as a young woman balance. I was always taught to overshare, overgive. And so I personally won't go back until I'm balanced, but I can give back in ways that balance me. So then when I do return, it won't be out of obligation or scarcity. It'll be from a place of like balance and abundance, which I feel like we need more examples of that than what we've been shown. So I appreciate your agenda to heal the hood and to be a father figure and a role model and to go take those tracks. And I want to thank you for being on the episode. If you guys want some CMOS, if y'all want to get y'all health and fitness together, if y'all want to see a podcast show, if y'all want to know about fatherhood, Kat got y'all covered, okay? Like, we didn't talk about intimacy. We didn't talk about a lot of spirituality, tons and tons of mental health, okay? We just haven't talked about financial freedom, but your show talks about that. Yeah. So if they ever wanted to touch bases with that. But this has been another amazing episode of Black Exploration with Nia, and I'm excited to continue this journey with my audience. If you guys have a story to share or comments or even some type of questions to ask, please feel free to comment below, or you can always follow us on social media or email us at team@ridgelconsulting.com. This has been another Black episode. Peace.
Peace.
All right.